All right. How you doing? How you thinking? What you feeling like? Saturday, November 18, 10:15 p.m. Mr. Ogunlana taking a moment to pause for the cause and say how much I'm grateful for the space that I'm in, how much I'm grateful for the hustle that I have, how much I'm grateful for everything that I've been given and blessed with. And I'm definitely grateful for everything that happened to me today because it's taught me much more about myself than I knew yesterday. Um, Today, I experienced a lot. Want to jump right into the main thing that I want to speak to myself about. And once again, everybody that's listening, I'll give you some grace. I appreciate you, sir, for sticking to the plan, even though the monkey wrench was thrown. You see what I'm saying? Today started off promising, and there was a minor challenge that occurred, and what I will say about it is, or just about, I'll try not to be so abstract and generic tonight, because I know I've been talking about some concepts and terms over the last few tapes that's kind of been really abstract and generic. First, I want to say that I appreciate myself for not engaging in any destructive thoughts, regardless of what situation I find myself in throughout my day. Today there was some misunderstandings, there was some miscommunication, there was some misfiring, so to speak, if we would use the analogy of a piston, and it caused some minor disruption in terms of my plan. This morning I rested. Yesterday I didn't realize how tired I was. This morning I got up, the alarm clock hit sharply at about 6 o'clock. I set it at 6 this morning because I went to bed yesterday. I think I went to bed around 1, 2 o'clock, and so I set it to about 6 to give myself at least about 3 or 4 hours. I got up. Well, the opportunity clock went off. I got up, walked out of the room. Then when I came back in the room, the bed just kind of sucked me back up out of them covers. And I did some more reading and research on getting up and staying up. And so some of the things that I read today is having a compelling reason to stay up is one way to stay up. Another way to stay up is to have a calendar where you actually can visually see it and draw the X's on it each day when you get up. That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is to situate the environment. So put the alarm clock on the other side of the room, get up. And so that's not necessarily my issue. If I were to be honest about what my issue is I tend to make a split-second decision. The question comes to mind, should I just go back to sleep? I can get up in about 5 more minutes. And what I would do is I would get under those covers and then snooze my way to about 9 o'clock. and and so tomorrow, one thing that I'd like to change, I didn't take a nap today because I slept in far later than I wanted to. Tomorrow, what I'd like to do is, first and foremost, when I do get up and I leave the room, and that's the first great thing that I do. I don't want to get up and make coffee. I don't want to start or create a good habit and then have a bad habit to maintain it. What I'd like to do is tomorrow is, as soon as I get up, turn the light on. That's the first thing I got to do, because I have to think about it as I'm essentially have to fight for it, and it's not, my body, my nature, so to speak, is really used to snoozing and pressing the snooze button and I tend to I decision myself back into sleep. And my life is beginning to get more organized, I will say. And I want to spend a little bit more time talking about this, and then I'll get into some of the things that I did today that I kind of recovered from, in terms of like coming off of a very disruptive morning / afternoon. And so tomorrow, turn the lights on and hit 20 push-ups. And when I hit 20 push-ups, I'm going to look at my goals. And, those are the 3 immediate things that I'm going to do. Before I go to bed, I'm going to look at my goals, and I'm going to visualize myself doing, and having all the things that are on my list. And so this is why I need to get up. So it's not necessarily that I don't have a compelling reason. It's just I haven't put myself to this kind of a test. And I have been testing myself with getting up early and doing this for the last few days. And each day, I think the day before last, it was a similar thing where I did get up, but then I came back to the room and I went back to sleep. And that's just because I'm building up my habit, and I haven't failed. I haven't lost, because it's not over until I win. So tomorrow when I get up, I am going to turn the lamp on, the light on in the room, and my morning ritual will start doing the 20 to 40 push-ups, as many push-ups I need to do to just get out of the sleep mode and look at what I want to be. Because what I'm finding is that my day is seriously dictated by the series of short decisions that I make immediately after I arise in the morning. And so these are just some things that I wanted to share with myself in the future, so that when I get it, especially as this message is coming from the past, when I get it in that present time, I will definitely make a better decision in relationship to how I'm getting up. And so I'm going to implement those 3 things tomorrow. Turn the light on. It'd be good to have the light turn on, but that's just something that I have to do. It's just something that I got to get up and do. And, the challenge is motivating myself to get up, to turn the light on, to do those push-ups to get my blood pumping instead of drinking coffee, and to look at my goals, and to just look at my goals. And because there's more for me to do, and I do like the quiet time in the morning, and I prefer to get up early. This is just something that I want to do, and I have to keep talking about it, and I won't let up off of it. This is, again, the part of myself that nobody else sees that I am working on. And when I conquer this, I'm going to be working on other things that nobody else sees, that essentially that makes up Mr. Ogunlana, the man, the technologist, the speaker, teacher, coach, etc. So today, after I did that, I did get up and I mopped or polished my floors. I'm happy about that. I spent some time doing some development work. I did about 3 projects at once today. It was some good, productive time that I did. I worked with Oracle today, and the setup on a Windows 7 laptop, or VMware actually, was pretty tricky. The Oracle download for Windows 7 is not as straightforward as Microsoft SQL Server. It takes about the same amount of time to install. It's interesting though. What I'm gonna have to do is familiarize myself with how to connect to the database, how to create tables, and just what the whole setup is, because it's a completely different setup. The install. So you download. I end up having to download version 11 because I'm running a x86 Windows 7 operating system. and the version 12 is 64-bit. So I ended up having to go back a version. So when I downloaded it, it downloads in two parts. And so I installed it the first time without realizing that I have to actually unzip both of the files or zip files and then unzip them both in the same directory. Didn't know that I was faced with a few exceptions during the install. But when I actually went to the documentation and read, I actually installed it again and it worked. And so the way that Oracle installs is that it installs the instance and the services on Windows, and then it gives a web management panel that can be utilized to check the database instance and do other things. So I'm in the process of learning that. I do like what I see so far and what I've experienced so far. And I set up the project that I'm working on right now. It is for the social media filmmaker. And what I want to talk about is gearhost.com. I don't think that website gets enough love for what it provides. I have used that site from the time I actually found that. So I found out about gearhost.com about a month ago. And since then, I've set up 4 sites on it. I've used it for all of my clients that I've had so far. And the deployment to the GearHost website is seamless. And the great thing about GearHost is GearHost provides a free account that gives you the ability to create a website. They give you access to a database instance. They give you access to a cloud database instance, a cloud web instance, and all of it's for free. Obviously, they limit some bandwidth and other things, but the great part about it is for free, and you can go from 0 to 100 without a domain name. You can start a project, for example, if you're a freelancer, and I've started several on this platform, and deployed the MVP form or at least just the proof of concept, and been developing on sites without having to buy domain names, without having to look at hosting options, without doing anything. And so I brought up several sites on GearHost, and I haven't had any problems. So if for all of the freelancers that listen eventually and the ones that listen now, if you are looking for a platform that isn't Azure, that isn't AWS, especially since Azure and AWS, they do give a free account, but you have to pay like after 30 days. This one is free, period. And they give you a cloud instance, database instance for each free account that you add to the system. And so what I do is I have all of my clients set up a free account, and I just do a web deploy to their instance, and it's good to go, and it's ready to deploy right out of the box. And so it connects to, you could do continuous deployment. They have continuous deployment set up directly from Bitbucket. And Git, which is amazing. And they also have, you could do web deploy. They give you the scripts for it. I mean, they pretty much make it really easy to integrate into their system. And so I highly recommend GearHost. I am very impressed with their system. They have saved me a lot of time and energy trying to create or set something up in terms of infrastructure for clients that have new software builds. Once again, that's gearhost.com. Check them out. So I set the social media filmmaker's website. I am going to refrain from using the name at this point until everything gets settled with his business. And it's a good site. I set everything up today. The tech stack for the site is I'm using ASP.NET MVC5 for the runtime platform, even though I don't need it because of the way that I'm developing the application. I'm using Web API to deliver the service layer or the business tier, so to speak, of the application to the client. I'm actually using a version of a JavaScript library that my colleague and I developed some time ago that I believe in strongly because it is a solid micro framework. And I think it deserves to be developed into a serious micro framework that will compete with Angular and React and others. I was thinking today, and I've said this before. I think I did a session. I gave my 2 cents on using vanilla or just using micro frameworks or frameworks in general in JavaScript or design patterns in general. Just plastering them to a website without thinking about what kind of problem will be solved. Now, I don't want to say that I'm guilty of this, but I believe in this micro framework. And I keep saying it's a micro framework because it is. It does not do the following. It does not try to force a kind of design pattern, even though the architectural approach for the framework is really MVC in nature, but it's actually like an abstraction. It's like a PAC. It's like a controller abstraction presenter kind of approach where there isn't anything done on the prototype level in JavaScript. Everything is done in what we coined as partial classes. And these partial classes are essentially JSON objects. And the newest version of this, so the prior version dealt with these JSON objects that was not encapsulated in a closure. And so I'm going to be developing the newer version of the framework that deals with that. I mean, most of it had been placed, most of the framework had been placed inside of closures, thanks to a very wise colleague of mine whose name I won't say at this point until I really put some more effort into this framework. And so I'm going to be developing and really putting a lot of energy into the framework as I develop this site, because the site has the potential of becoming really big, and I don't want to be joined at the hip, so to speak, to a client framework. I want the framework that is birthed out of this website. It had already existed, though, just, but because I'm the lead on it, and I'm also the lead on the project that is the JavaScript project, that I think I am going to be really putting some effort into flowering the framework into more of a framework that will compete with React, because it is a really solid framework, and I'm the paradigm, so to speak, of the framework is pre-React, how React is really event driven, and there's a paradigm shift in a lot of these frameworks that I do not like, so to speak. I think they all kind of take and make JavaScript on the browser too serious. Whereas JavaScript on the browser is supposed to aid in rapid development. And so Angular has grown into more of a all-encompassing framework, and React is really more of an all-encompassing framework. I do provide a framework to put code and structure pages in a way that they are testable, that you can have single units of work that can be testable. And so just wanted to spend some time to deal with that. I think this project, we'll see how far this project goes. But I think that, if everything lines up, then this framework is really going to take off. On the server side, it's .NET. I chose to go with the standard framework .NET instead of making it a .NET Core project, simply because I didn't want to complicate anything right now. I do like .NET Core, by the way. I am a fan of .NET Core. I don't know if I said this on a prior cast, but I have found a IOC container that works well with .NET Core, which is Autofac. I think I said it before. And there are the basic design pattern architecture, so to speak, from the web API controllers to back to the database is command handlers, where the handlers are really the static instance, even though they render on the web API as transient, but the commands themselves are the static instance, and the handlers are the transient instance, simply because of the way that and this is a very technical talk, I know. I went from talking about the monkey wrench being thrown in my plans to being very technical. So I'm just going to go with the flow. So the commands are the static objects, simply because in the way that I architected this, and there are many different ways to design. I've seen a few different ways just on a couple of projects that I've developed or been on in the last few months. And I've developed the command handler approach a few different ways as well over the last few months. And I think this is the fourth, fifth time that I've developed a command handler architecture. And I think it is probably the leanest and probably the most efficient version, because I am really tapping into the IOC container for the object creation destruction. And I'm also keeping the handlers very, very lean. And so the reason I threw the command handler design into this project and others is simply because it is the one step down from a full-blown business rule engine. And I had a lot of exposure to business rule engines early in my career, where that and in like Microsoft Service Bus technology, in-service bus technology, other technologies like RabbitMQ, Mass Transit, and others, where it's really, when you think about scaling massive workloads, massive client bases across multiple servers, and to distribute the processing in such a way that the workload is equally distributed amongst all of the servers. And this is really the one step down from that. And so I typically start there because it's a really basic approach, and it prevents development, or I'll say it differently, it keeps development solid, so to speak, using that acronym, because I've seen a lot of controller architectures, MVC architectures, where from the controllers back, you either have some major facade layer or some major facade class that really is a proxy for, it's really like the old school big giant god JavaScript class that had all of the functions in it. And I've seen controllers to facades, or controllers to I've seen I'm thinking of the name orchestrators. I've seen an orchestrator pattern where you have a controller to an orchestrator, and then the orchestrator to like a repository or some sort of provider or some sort of provider or some a proxy or some sort, where the orchestrator is supposed to maintain or essentially be like the newfangled facade, where the old school facade was supposed to make the business tier obsolete, so to speak. So I've seen many different design patterns, and I think at this point in my career, I think the command handler approach is probably the cleanest, especially in a web project that doesn't have a relatively large customer base. And when I say relatively large, I'm talking about maybe a few thousand users that active on the system at once. And even then, I know it will still perform. I think the only time that this architecture, so to speak, becomes obsolete when you start dealing with anything over, maybe 100,000 users at once, and it might still perform because it's so lean. I'd be really interested to do some load tests on the server with this architecture because it is really lean, and I'm very confident in it. I think I had an opportunity to be a part of a team where a guy actually wrote a business rule engine and challenged me to look at it and to rewrite it. And so I have some ideas on writing a business rule engine that I might get an opportunity here shortly to really look into. But in other news, I did some work on, I know I've been talking about ArtYa and that project. We'll see how far it goes. I started that project a couple months ago, maybe a month or two ago, and I did some very magical things for them, and I've been given an opportunity to lead their team. It would be nice to put core that core JavaScript framework that I've been working on that project too. But I might go with more of a standard, quote unquote, like industry standard, quote unquote, library, simply because I don't get the warm and fuzzies with them, so to speak. I don't know how far I can take their project. I'm not sure how serious they are, so we'll see. It depends on everything. They might give me total control. We'll see. But in other news, so those projects are going, and so I did a lot of that today just to really get off of my mind the disruptions that happened earlier during the day. And so it all in all, today has been a very productive one. I have still considering and thinking about going ahead and making the Zapier purchase because and maybe tonight, actually tomorrow, what I'll do is I'll look at what everything will look like in terms of all of my tasks, because I got a couple of tasks, and if I go ahead and make the purchase, I want to use the hell out of Zapier. They're gonna really make me use it. I got some social media tasks that I want to do. I got some tasks to populate my website. I got I want to be looking at pulling images, maybe like from like the current news from my think posts. I have a lot of different things that I want to get into, some very interesting experiments, so to speak, that I want to get into with that. And I'm actually using WordPress, and that's PHP, and it's okay. It's an okay platform, and I'm using it just to familiarize myself with WordPress and PHP just because I could have easily brought that site, and I might end up doing that. I might actually take that site down and bring up Dream Think Design on .NET Core using the Core framework and Web API, simply because I want to kind of test some things out on my own website. And so I'm thinking about it, and so, but right now it's on WordPress and it's decent. It gets the job done. I've never really been a fan of WordPress simply because I've never really been a fan of PHP. But interestingly enough, back when I was in college, I ended up writing a website that was like an eBay type website that had an auction system and everything, that had payment processing and everything, and it was all written in PHP. And so I just I'm using it. Maybe I'll do some cool stuff with Node, but we'll see. But anyway, so I just wanted to kind of talk about some different technologies. Any other technology that I want to talk about today? No. What I will say is that once again I congratulate myself for having a productive day. Today is Saturday, and so even though there was some disruptions, I was able to pull it out, even when it seemed like I wasn't going to. Want to take time to say I love you, that I give thanks for you, that I'm looking at these truth cards that I got from Vic Johnson. I really like them. So once again, taking the time out to say how much I'm grateful for you, letting you know that you are the type of person who wakes up early, that you are on your way to greatness, and you will strive to reach life's greatest rewards. You act decisively in everything you do. You are highly organized and have a good grasp on your goals and have a process in place to accomplish those goals. So if you, for any reason, find your head hung low, do me this favor. My father, anytime he saw me in that state, he would look at me and he would stop everything that he was doing and say, "Son, raise your head." And what I'd say, and I'd add to that, is you have greatness on the inside. So there's no reason for you to look any lower. Until the next time we speak.